friends. I'm Amy Morgan with the Marriage Initiative, and I am just delighted today to introduce Julie and Greg Gorman to you. Julie and Greg founded Married for a Purpose Ministry more than 2 decades ago and offer life-transforming business and personal coaching services. They're executive coaches, trainers, and speakers certified by the Patterson Center, Dr. John Maxwell, and Personality Insights Institute, as well as Symbis. Their book, Two Are Better Than One, God Has a Purpose for Your Marriage, lays the groundwork for their Thrive in Marriage resources, their certification training for marriage champions, and their REBOOT personalized marriage retreat. They've published 4 other books, a blog, and produce weekly broadcasts teaching couples how to live purpose-focused lives and thrive in their marriages. Their motto is, marriage is beautiful, family is forever. Julie and Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, we're so excited. Thanks for having us.
Great pleasure. Yeah, it's good to see you.
That was a really long intro just to say, hey, we love marriage and family.
Well, it's good. But, it's also important that people know your background and they know what, makes you special and sets you apart, as well as all your training that you took a lot of hard work to get. So
indeed.
Thank you.
So it's important. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about your motto and your driving vision. You guys didn't have the easiest start, did you?
Boy, we sure didn't. I honestly think, we've been married for 24 years. And the start was pretty rough. We both grew up in severely dysfunctional homes. I grew up in a family where every abuse was present. So physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. And I brought all of that baggage into the marriage relationship. Crazy, psychotic, jealous, just a lot of hangups and a lot of vows that I'd written across my heart that I had no idea that I had written. And it really set Greg for an uphill climb.
Well, and I brought my share of baggage in as well, because I had a bit of a dysfunctional family myself. Lots and lots of things, way more than we've got time for today. But suffice it to say, I drug a bunch of baggage into our marriage. And it just took us a while to get healed and to love one another through all of those things, and then learn how to love one another better. So,
but the beautiful thing about it is God did provide the healing. And now he uses what he did in our lives to serve as a bridge for others to cross over from death to life.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to mention you guys were a blended family too. And
right.
So many people, have felt this, that maybe they're marginalized because of that in the church. And that is, a stigma that we're definitely trying to break through and break free of.
I think there's all kinds of things that is head trash that will cause us to disqualify ourselves or marginalize ourselves. But yeah, Julie and I both came from divorce. We were both of our parents were divorced, and then she and I were both married and divorced. And so again, that contributed to a lot of different things that held us back and frustrated us for a while. But again, as Julie mentioned, God redeems all of that, and he has in our life. We had to work at it. There wasn't any magic pill, and it didn't happen overnight. It's been an ongoing process for the last 2.5 decades. So,
yeah,
but we got a pretty good rhythm now.
We do have a great rhythm.
Well, and I think it's really important that people know, so they know who you are, and they know too, you cast such a vision for restoration. And, you talk about hope. That so many people say that you really inspire them with hope. And so I just think that's really important. So you had mentioned that you started working, kind of mentoring some other couples, which was good, and working with your church. But really, you guys found some great inspiration in a kind of non-traditional, non-church-like traditional space. Can we talk about that, about some of the practices that really kind of formulated what you do now?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So, as Julie and I became leaders in corporate America, and we led different organizations, we've owned several different businesses ourselves. We were always both, one of the things that we shared in common, other than our faith, was that we always wanted to grow and become better as individuals and just become better people in general. And so as we went out into the business world, we pressed into a lot of self-development. And as we did that, we grew as individuals. And a lot of the practices that we used in our businesses to help grow our businesses, the leadership principles and just good people, communication skills and things of that nature, we were carrying them home. because they were changing us. And as we did that, then of course we noticed that it was really making a big difference in our marriage. And that led to a little bit deeper dive of really studying not only our marriage, but many other marriages over the course of several different years. And we realized a couple of principles that we hear sometimes more so in self-development space of business and things of that nature, but they're not really applied to the family space. And one of those is just that we become what we think about. And all thought leaders throughout time have agreed on this central principle. They may be from all different backgrounds, different faiths. Doesn't matter if they're Baptist or Buddhist or anywhere in between. They've all agreed that we become what we think about. King Solomon said, as we think in our heart, so we become. Right. And so if that's true, what we realized is that as it applies to our marriage relationship, we needed to be very conscious of our thoughts, to be thinking about what we want more of and what we want to see more of in our life, in our business, in our finances, in our mate, in our kids, rather than the things that our mind tends to gravitate towards, which are the things that we don't like, or the things that maybe she does things different than I do, or I wish she would do it like I do, or, things of that nature. And it's easy to get caught in that loop and or become really, really problem focused. And when we do that, according to all thought leaders, including King Solomon, we unwittingly kind of perpetuate more of the things that we actually don't want.
Yeah. One of the things that we say, Amy, is that we gravitate towards what we contemplate. Yeah. So it's what we realized is our mind was never wired in such a way as to think in reverse. So if I say to you, don't think about a little white mouse, whatever you do, don't picture a little white mouse. Immediately what happens in our mind is we picture the little white mouse, no matter how much we intend not to. And so how that pertains to the marriage relationship, a lot of times we get into a marriage relationship, we go to somebody to get help for maybe an area of life that we're struggling with, and we start focusing on all the things that we shouldn't be doing, what we need to fix, what we need to correct. But the problem with problematic thinking is that once you solve one issue or problem, there's always another that's going to rear its ugly head.
You become problem aware.
We become problem aware. And so what we like to do is we begin to work with couples in such a way that we say, okay, here's what we don't want. The problem does make us aware of what we don't want. But then we shift it in such a way to say, okay, well, what is it that you do want? Yeah. What is the desired outcome? And then we help couples begin to build on common ground towards the very thing that they both say that they want. I love how Time Magazine actually did an article that was so fascinating. And at the end of the article, they summarized it as this. They said, every couple longs for a spouse who sees them for who they are, accepts them for who they are, while bringing out the best in who they are. And so the way that we like to teach it is we help couples see the best, believe the best, and speak the best about their mate. And so that isn't just something where it's like, again, just a mind discipline, but it's a heart condition that actually changes as we work with couples and help them to rewire their thinking in such a way of, instead of addressing the problem or the issue all the time, they take that problem and issue and begin to think about what the desired outcome is. And as they land on what they agree on, we then work it backwards into, okay, well, how do we actually accept that? How do we live into that? What does that look like? And then naturally, the things that once were those problems begin to take the rightful place and kind of diminish their power over our life.
Yeah, I really like that. The desired outcome. I've even been like talking about that after reading some of your resources, talking to you. I've used that with my son and with my husband, and it is when you change the language and kind of change the focus. It's really an interesting concept, and that is kind of a concept that seeps into all of your things. You have several books out that you've written. Of course, two are better than one, and then a few others. If you want to talk about your books.
Sure. Yeah, we wrote a devotional. It's a 52-week devotional that gives couples the opportunity to have one thought that they can live into and begin the new way of thinking and new habits for living. It's called Married for a Purpose, and it's just a simple devotional. We have What I Wish My Mother Had Told Me About Men, which actually goes with our Thrive curriculum. And so the thing that I love about our resources is that they all have video content that goes with them. So what I wish my mother had told me about marriage and what I wish my mother had told me about men actually goes with the Thrive curriculum. It's a Thrive course, and that's actually available on Right Now Media if your listeners are used to, that kind of a platform.
Yeah.
That's a
And
few.
It's a few of them.
and you have kind of adapted that Thrive curriculum. Let's talk a little bit more about it, because it has several different, it's on Right Now Media, but there's other ways to access it, correct?
Absolutely. You can go to marriedforapurpose.com. We have 5 different courses currently for couples. There's one video each week that a couple could watch. It would take them through the entire year of getting just a little bit better every single week and to grow together. So we have the Thrive course. We have Discover Your Marriage Purpose course. We have a couplepreneur course, which is really a fun kind of a course out there for maybe the couples that are entrepreneurs, that are couplepreneurs together.
Yeah.
And then we have the Higher Way of Thinking and the New Habits for Living course. And we're getting ready to do a parenting course too. So stay tuned for that.
We are indeed.
And you also have some coaching for newlyweds or pre-marrieds, correct?
We do. We use Les and Leslie Parrott's Simba system, and we're certified through them. And then we also train other coaches or make access to that through our organization for other coaches to be able to do that and minister to the newlyweds or the soon-to-be weds.
Yeah, one of the things that we did that was unique too, because Greg and I realized that conferences or, an engagement where we're just doing a speaking event, it kind of provides that aha moment. Yeah. Much like this interview, there might be some ahas going on, but we're really passionate about providing pathways to sustainable growth and life transformation. And so all of our curriculums, whether it's a book or a video series, there's always a next step that no matter how deep a couple wants to go, they can actually go deeper to grow in their marriage and relationship. One of the most exciting things that we're doing right now is the REBOOT intensives. And we have 30 couples currently that have been licensed by our organization now to facilitate these reboots. And we actually have our first international coach. So there's a lot of excitement there. The idea is to provide a one-on-one conference retreat just for an individual couple. So a couple would come into, let's say we're facilitating it. You would come into our home. We do a 2-day deep dive that lets you walk away with a marriage purpose and a marriage vision to be able to walk out. And we do all kinds of fun things like common interest surveys. We do problem-focused, purpose-focused quizzes. And it's a really interactive, deep dive that lets a couple begin to maybe even acknowledge some of the areas that they've struggled in, that they just can't seem to get past, or maybe an area where they need some wisdom or clarity and they want to go bigger and get better.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because, for our marriage champions, they may be interested in referring a couple. Maybe they've been working as a mentor with a couple, and they're, like you said, they're kind of stuck. They either want to take their marriage from good to great, or they're kind of teetering and then really need that extra help. So this REBOOT program, and again, what sounds so different about it is it's personal. It's one couple to one couple, and it's in person, right?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of couples actually go when they left our home or they're leaving our coaches' homes, unanimously what they're saying is we feel hope. We feel inspired to move forward. So I think that's one of the main things that the REBOOT process provides. And we've also had comments like, man, I got more in this 2-day marriage intensive than I have in the last 20 years of trying to work and get better in my marriage.
Yeah, I think part of the secret sauce, I suppose, that makes this process and just the approach, the philosophy, if you will, so much different is it's really designed to help a couple rediscover those things that they can unite around. And I think so often in the real world, in marriage, it's so easy for us to begin to define our relationship based on our differences. We talked about how, we put our best foot forward when we're dating, and we dress to impress, and, we have a lot of grace for one another, and those little things, they're not irritants, they're cute, but then after we get married and we've been together for a while, all too often what happens is we just get comfortable. And when we get comfortable, we tend to get complacent. And when we're complacent, what that looks like is we really begin to focus and hone in on all the things that are the irritants, all of the differences and so on. And sometimes we can even begin to define our differences, define ourselves by our differences, even a little bit lighthearted and jokingly, but then it begins to take on a little bit more of a deeper root. And what we found is that when people unite, we hear a lot in today's marketing about 10Xing things, right? And God is the originator of the 10X plan. And I think that as we as Christians and Christian couples, when we begin to recognize God's 10X plan, what it means to 10X everything that's good in our life, all of the blessings that he has for us, then we're really able to tap into something that's very, very practical. And it's very simple. The antithesis of it is that a house divided won't stand. And so, again, that's why it's important that we don't define ourselves and our relationship based on our differences, but more so off of our likenesses and where we're united. And so if a house divided won't stand, then the opposite of that is that a house that's united will stand. And that where the 10X comes into play is where scripture tells us that one will put 1,000 to flight, but two will put 10,000 to flight. And so as a couple, I think it's an overlooked opportunity so many times for us to have much greater impact and just even to learn how to love one another better. So everything that we've written, and including obviously the reboot process of coaching, is designed to help couples rediscover those unifying points, those things that they do share in common, those things that they do want. And I can't tell you how many times we've had folks, Amy, that came in initially talking about they just are not on the same page. They're not reading off the same sheet of music. They don't share anything in common anymore. And they're, kind of on one of these, rigid, right? Yeah, exactly. A lot.
Which is not y'all's body language at all.
And after, again, just 48 hours, they're finding that they have so much in common. They had just gotten in the habit of defining and even thinking and defending all of the limitations between them, rather than doing away with those things and quit worrying about justifying why we feel the way we feel, and just uniting around where it is that we're going and what it is that we want together for our future. And now we're all thinking forward. We're all united together and moving towards the same dot.
One of the things that makes the reboot a successful thing is because we're slowing the pace. I think that in our society, we are so fast paced and we're going to the next thing, And in that 2-day retreat, what we're doing in a one-on-one personal interaction kind of way is we're just saying, let's pause. Let's think about together. What do you want for your marriage? What do you want for your family? And we take it through the different, we have 8 different kind of structures, whether it's intimacy, lifestyle rhythm, faith, career calling. We go through all of the different aspects that a couple is trying to build a future together towards. And we begin to isolate what they want in each one of those areas. And then we provide the atmosphere from where they are to where they want to be. We do a reflect back to what got them to where they are, whether it's good or bad. What got them to where they are today. And we provide the atmosphere where both of them are seen, where both of them are heard, and where both of them are understood, not just by the two of us, but in a safe environment where they actually can hear what one another are saying without all the defensive mechanisms that we sometimes put up in our relationship. And then as we do that, they literally are creating a vision for what they want for their future. And in that power and in that anointing, they get breakthrough that I think just is hard to maybe accomplish in a once-off kind of session because it's so concentrated. They're able to really isolate and be able to hear one another in a new way.
Oh, well, that sounds so invigorating and inspiring. And I would imagine that some of our marriage champions are thinking not just of the couple that they want to send to you, but also you provide training, right? You said you have 30 couples that are already trained to do this, but you have certification and training courses too for our marriage champions. Let's talk about that, because I bet there's somebody listening who's interested in joining your team.
Yeah. God put on our hearts a mission. And that mission is to transform how culture views and values the family. So we're not out to point our fingers at what people are doing wrong. What we're trying to do is point back to what God intended for the
Yeah,
family.
that's exactly right.
Where again, there's a value for family, and we know that that's going to take a whole lot more than just me and Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in that heart and mindset, we knew that we needed to be able to transfer what we were doing with other couples. And so for the last couple of years, we've been just slowly, methodically choosing some couples that have been walking with us for a few years and empowering them to take that template for the 2-day marriage retreat that we've been talking about. And we put the tools in their hands. And what's so beautiful is those couples now are taking that same template, and they're beginning to facilitate, and they're seeing the same breakthroughs for couples that we've been seeing.
Yeah. And, in the next couple of years, we're looking to expand that team pretty aggressively. We're being methodical. Like Julie said, we're not interested in having a growth. We want to have growth, but in the right way.
No tumor.
Right. And so we've been very intentional about building the infrastructure and on the underpinning to make sure that we're able to support our coaches well. So once a couple comes in and actually becomes trained in the process, we continue to support them from then on. In fact, we do 2 calls every month for the coaches. And we just, sometimes we'll do a little teaching and then we always open it up for Q&A so that the coaches can ask questions. We're always doing additional training and providing more training videos and just talking about some of the nuances of working with couples and do it in a way that, again, provides results and that everybody feels ministered to rather than fixed, because our job is really not to fix people. It's just to help them and help them, raise their awareness. Help them understand and articulate more clearly what it is that they want, because believe it or not, you might be surprised, but it's a question that when we ask it of folks, sometimes they really stumble with what do I want? We're also busy, taking care of just the next thing and the next thing all the time, that many times we don't stop to think, okay, what do I really want? If I were to write the chapter of my life for the next, say, 2 years, and we were high-fiving, chest bumping, and happy dancing about where we are then versus where we are now, what's different in that picture? What exactly are we happy dancing, high-fiving, and chest bumping about,
So Amy, we would love for your marriage champions to reach out to us. We are right now, usually about twice a year, we're doing a retreat to certify couples. And so that certification extends from one evening and then over a period of 3 days, where we talk about the hands-on tools, the practical way to implement those tools, the Married for a Purpose methodology, which is purpose-focused, not problem-focused. And so we would love for your marriage champions to come along. We know this one thing: pastors oftentimes are completely overworked, and they don't have the resources or the bandwidth to minister to every couple in their church. And so we're really encouraging the multiplicity factor, because the more Greg and Julie's out there that are passionate about enhancing and strengthening marriages and families, that's how we're going to transform our culture. And that's how we're going to take our nations back to have that God-centric focus.
Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned that about the churches and the pastors, because that's what I was going to ask you. That I know with our marriage champions, some of them are champing at the bit and ready to connect, and some of them are like going, maybe just a toe in the water. But yet you provide that water for the toe. So could we back up just a smidge from the ones that are ready to go all out and all in and come to your training, which is extensive, and you even do SYMBIS trained coaches. You even kind of have a purpose-focused way of looking at that
Yep.
too. Do you?
Yeah. So all of our curriculums, we have 6-week and 10-week leader guides like for when couples are wanting to come together to maybe do a small group.
Yeah.
We have resources and tools to be able to do that.
Okay.
We have a membership, and this is a really great way for somebody to get involved, maybe toe deep or ankle deep with the ministry. And they can go to the Married for a Purpose site, so marriedforapurpose.com. And front and center, they're going to be able to see the Thrive curriculum. They're going to be able to find the membership. And the membership actually gives them access to all 5 of our courses. So they're able to go in, look through all the different curriculums. We did design the curriculums to be easy and digestible.
Well, and we also made sure that they wouldn't break out into fights, you
Yeah.
know. So really the questions, the Q&A, the interaction has, we went ad nauseum into that, because we've just encountered a lot of couples, and we ourselves in the early days actually had one of our worst fights. Do you
We were
remember that?
trying to do a marriage devotional, and we broke out one of the worst fights we ever had. And so we're very
There's some
careful.
bad questions to ask that set you up for failure, I'm just going to say. So anyway, we've been very, very careful to make sure that that everybody feels good at the end rather than defeated.
But
That's important.
that would be a great way for your leaders, your champions, to get involved, though, through that membership, because they would have access to all the curriculums. It would grant them access to be able to talk with Greg and I twice a month when we do our community calls for our members. And just let them take a little bit deeper dive of what is all this purpose focused versus problem focused kind of thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that is really a helpful insight there, because that is just what we want, to help our marriage champions be able to find you and connect with you, and really feel like they know your resources, and that you're their next great study that they want to do, and the next thing that's going to come to their churches. Do you want to talk about your books a little bit more? We've covered your training, your certification, maybe a little bit more about what's in them.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first book we usually talk about is called What I Wish My Mother Had Told Me About Marriage. Now we're well, it was written several years ago, but basically the way that I would describe that book, Amy, is that it's sort of the 101s of marriage. It's the fundamentals. And, sometimes we might think, oh, well, that's for the younger couples then. It's not really. It's for everybody, because who among us don't need to be reminded of the fundamentals?
We pick up our books and go, ooh, I better start practicing that
know,
again.
right? So it just covers things like surrender. One of the struggles that we had early on in our marriage is that we thought we were surrendered to Christ. And then that was one issue. We needed some additional layers of surrendering there, right? But I think more than anything else, I needed to surrender Julie to Christ, and Julie needed to surrender me. And so instead of us being one another's Holy Spirit, which doesn't work real well, we learned, and we talk in that chapter, specifically about how what that looks like in process to actually release our spouse and let God do his job, right? And then, little things like just lies, common lies that the enemy of our soul wants to try to convince us of, that will tear us apart. We talk about dreaming together, which is something that, quite honestly, with all of the couples that we've worked with, there are a lot of things that come up commonly. And one of the most common things that we discover is that folks have trouble having fun with one another, they get so busy just doing the next thing, like we talked about before, that they forget how to really connect and have good connection and dream and have fun.
Yeah.
Together.
One of the books that we did too, it's a little different. It's actually called Gentle Whispers, and it's a 40-day journey to being able to hear God's voice in our life and our marriage. So it's if you're familiar with like the Jesus calling, there's a gentle whisper that is able to be read, and then all of the scripture that would actually support that whisper, so that we can find those whispers in scripture. And then the simple thing of, God, who do you say that I am? What do you have to say about my circumstances? Again, when we think about the society that we're in, we're all at such a fast pace, and being able to stop and pause and be able to say, God, what is it that you're speaking? When we posture our heart that way, God so often will bring up a scripture, or he'll bring somebody's face to mind, or he'll give us the next step that we need to take. And in all of that, the thing that I'm trying to live out right now is to let his peace be my pace. And so that book allows for couples to even come together and read together and find that peace for their marriage and for their relationship.
You can't read it and not be encouraged in your spirit. Julie has a real gift here. She invited me to help her write that book. And I refused. I'm like, I don't need to mess with that. What you've got going there is just so special. And so I highly, highly recommend that one. And then, another book that we have is Two Are Better Than One, God Has a Purpose for Your Marriage. And, it is a super high level approach to the marriage reboot. But really kind of the first half of that book lays out the idea that God has a purpose for your marriage. Then the second half is really a little bit of the process to kind of at least shove you in the right direction and have you begin to think about what your purpose might be, your unique purpose as a couple. And so that one's a fun read as
and
well.
some good fundamental things of how to actually build on common ground, how to work towards that lifestyle rhythm that both partners share.
Well, that sounds like a really good place for our marriage champions to start too, between the books and then getting to your website and maybe even thinking about that membership and maybe even becoming your next coaches.
You bet.
So Julie and Greg, it has been so great talking to you. I could just keep talking to y'all forever, but we have run out of time. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for championing us and for sharing our resources forward. We'd love anybody that feels passionate about marriage and family to reach out to us.
Or anyone that needs help,
Yeah.
Again, feel free to reach out and we'll do whatever we can to point you in the right direction and help you out.
Oh, well, that was just great. And marriage champions, if you'd like to know more about the Gormans and Married for a Purpose, you can always find us at marriageinitiative.org.